Today's special guest on 5 Questions in 5 Minutes is Paul Collins, CEO of SkillsTX, the global leader in digital skills management. Paul's team have used the power of SFIA coupled with their SkillsTX talent experience platform to deliver digital skills management programs to thousands of users around the world for over 20 years. Wow, 20 years. Kind of like a dog, I think 20 technology years is like 140 human years, Paul. So you've no doubt seen a massive change in the digital skills space. Thanks for joining us and happy to have you here.
Huge privilege to be invited, Gary. So thank you very much for the invite and looking forward to our 5-minute chat.
All right. Well, you know what? Let's get to it. Question number 1. Skills Framework for the Information Age, also known as SFIA. What is it and why should I care?
It's a question I get just about every day. And I answer it really in a very simple way. First of all, it gives us a common language for describing skills, and describing skills is not that common. We often hear Python being touted as a skill, and that's not how we see it in the world of SFIA. It's the language of the employer. So even if you've not adopted SFIA, you will recognize the skills. And why is that important? I suppose that's what it really boils down to. Great phrase that I picked up recently. I've seen it many times. You can't manage what you can't measure. And what we do is measure skills. So you know what you've got in your talent pool, and you can compare that with what you need and make great decisions from it.
You can't manage what you don't measure. I love that. Yeah, it's a fantastic saying. I love that one, Paul. I think of my diverse range of clients. Okay, so we have public sector and private sector, etc. Is market or segment, is there a particular one that benefits the most from SFIA?
Generally speaking, no. Mainly from the point of view of what I've just said. It's the language of the employer. If you employ information workers, then it's got relevance. Of course, the technology type businesses, software developers, they'll really resonate with it. There's a lot of really technical skills in there. But at the end of the day, it's a very broad framework. And I see it really from 2 points of view. If we look at public sector, they often don't have the money to attract workers on money alone. So offering people career paths is a way to attract and retain. And if you look at it in the private sector, it gives you a competitive edge. You know what your talent pool is, you can use it productively. So yeah, pretty broad. And certainly we work with clients in every one of those sectors. So yeah, there it is, broad.
I can hear some of my customers now, what? Another framework? How does SFIA 9, because we're going to talk SFIA 9 because we know that that's coming out soon, which is exciting. How does that compare to other common frameworks like NIST for cybersecurity, ITIL for, of course, IT service management, ISACA if we want to talk governance? So how do they compare when it comes to, implementation, effort and approach?
I think there's a word springs to mind with regard to the SFIA framework, and that word is ubiquitous. And it's not really that they compare or compete, that they can work alongside. But SFIA is mapped to most of these other frameworks. So, we're not saying don't use the framework, but you can use SFIA and integrate it. So if you're using NIST, ITIL is a great example. Obviously, there's some reference to people in there, but it's obviously mainly processes. And a lot of the ITIL phraseology you'll actually see within SFIA, but SFIA is much more about the practical skills of the individuals. And I'll just finish really with a bit of a plug really for the SFIA Foundation. Go to their website, do a search on bodies of knowledge, and you will see just about every other framework. And in some cases, how SFIA has been mapped to those frameworks. Babok really stands out as a very deep dive in how those two frameworks can work together. So we're not saying throw them out, we're saying use it alongside and integrate it where it makes sense.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to take my IT blinders off now, since this is, it's clear to me that this is not just another IT-centric framework. So how does SFIA work with more non-IT roles?
That's a great question. Yeah, I mean, SFIA very much gets branded as, you know, the sort of digital technical framework, and it's far from it. And I describe that very simply. There are 6 categories in SFIA. They've been quite consistent. They're in SFIA 9. Only 2 of those categories you would consider to be for the sort of hardcore technology workers. The rest are just skills that we have in a workplace of knowledge workers, you know, people skills, sales and marketing skills, etc. So I think it's time, and I think SFIA 9 is going to break that mold even more in terms of how it's broadened out. And I just finish with one phrase that I've sort of coined, which is particularly with SFIA 9, it's relevant to anyone that uses a keyboard. So whether you call them knowledge workers, information workers, SFIA 9 will have skills that describe what you do for sure.
Last question, Paul. Now, I'm sure most listeners are hearing about SFIA for the first time. I mean, certainly here in Canada and the US, it's considered nascent, a nascent framework, even though it's been around for 20 years, of course. What's the recommended first step for organizations wanting to sink their teeth into SFIA?
That's a good point, and again, something, of course, that we deal with frequently. I'd say put SFIA to one side for the time being, and work out how you actually manage your information workers or your talent pool, whatever terminology you want to use. And to that end, and it's completely free and private, we've actually got a digital skills maturity assessment. And it will give you a benchmark and lots of good advice and guidance on using frameworks to manage your talent pool. And of course, SFIA does a great job at that. So SFIA does come into it. And then the other thing, which is more introducing yourself into the framework itself, go and do a free assessment, jump on our website, you can sign up. It'll take you through the actual process of documenting your skills. And whilst that's very powerful in its own right, you're going to get this sort of digital CV. What it will do is introduce you to the terminology and the structure of the framework. And that in itself is a great learning exercise. You know, what actually is a skill? Well, do the assessment and you'll see a description of one front and center. So that would be my advice, first steps.
Well, you know, that's the 5 questions in 5 minutes or so. You know, there's no question it's an exciting time for SFIA. So this is great. And, you know, Paul, again, thanks so much for taking part in our little session on digital skills, and good luck with the imminent release of SFIA 9. I just see great things happening for this framework.
Well, likewise, Gary, we're looking forward to working with you guys over there and changing the world one skill at a time.
Cheers.
Thanks.